There's a certain kind of person who only respects pressure. They won't hear you unless you raise your voice. They won't back off unless you push back. And yet, there's a quieter way to break their grip. A way that doesn't require confrontation, but leaves them unsure, unsettled, and suddenly respectful. Picture a mountain in a storm. The wind howls, the rain strikes, and still it doesn't move. That's how the Stoic holds their ground, not by shouting down the storm, but by outlasting it. When toxic people test you, they're not looking for truth. They're looking for your reaction, and the moment you refuse to give it, you win a war they never saw coming. You don't need to match their chaos. You don't need to explain yourself. You need to become the one thing they can't manipulate, someone who cannot be provoked. In this video, you'll learn 7 Stoic strategies that allow you to command respect from toxic people without ever engaging in their drama. No arguments, no games, just presence, poise, and power. Let's begin. 1. Master your emotions. Imagine a soldier standing guard at the city gate. Behind him, people live their lives in peace, but at the gate, insults are hurled, threats are shouted, and provocations fly like arrows. The soldier doesn't move. He hears it all, sees it all, but stands still, not because he's numb, but because he understands what's at stake. His stillness isn't weakness, it's discipline, it's power. This is what it means to master your emotions. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They poke, prod, and provoke, not to win an argument, but to pull you into their chaos. If you lash out, if you defend, if you explain, you're playing their game. But if you remain calm, you shift the balance. You starve them of the thing they want most, your emotional energy. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him." That's not just philosophy, it's a warning. The moment you allow someone to control how you feel, you've surrendered your inner fortress. You've handed them the key. Let me tell you a different story, one about a young woman named Elise. She worked in a competitive marketing agency full of sharp minds and sharper tongues. One colleague in particular, Ronan, seemed to have it out for her. He interrupted her in meetings, mocked her ideas in subtle ways, and tried to make her feel small with little digs masked as jokes. At first, Elise took the bait. She argued back, tried to defend her ideas, even complained to her manager. But nothing changed, because her reactions were feeding him. Ronan didn't need to win the debate, he just needed her to lose her balance. One weekend, Elise came across a passage from Epictetus, and it hit her. She realized that she wasn't losing because she was wrong. She was losing because she was reacting, so she changed. The next week, when Ronan made another sarcastic comment in front of the team, Elise didn't flinch. She didn't defend, didn't smirk, didn't even look surprised. She calmly continued with her point, as if nothing had been said. Ronan laughed awkwardly, but it didn't land. No one reacted. And for the first time, he looked uncertain. Over the following weeks, Elise remained centered. She answered questions with calm clarity. She engaged with others but ignored the bait. And eventually, Ronan stopped. Not because she confronted him, but because there was no fire left to fuel. That's the Stoic way. To master your emotions, start by observing them. Know where your buttons are so no one else can push them. Build a habit of pausing. When provoked, let silence be your shield. Let your breath be your anchor. And most importantly, remember that staying calm is not about suppressing your feelings, it's about choosing your response. In a noisy world, composure speaks louder than rage. And the person who cannot be rattled is the one who commands true respect. So don't just win the argument, win yourself back. That's the real victory. 2. Maintain an unshakable presence. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from volume, titles, or showmanship. It's the kind you feel when someone walks into a room and says nothing, yet everyone notices, not because they seek attention, but because they carry none of the need for it. That's presence. And it's built, not performed. True presence is the expression of someone who has already done the inner work. They're not proving anything. They're not trying to win a room. They simply know who they are. And that quiet certainty commands more respect than any speech ever could. Seneca once wrote, "A great mind becomes a great fortune." In other words, it's not wealth, fame, or praise that makes you powerful. It's the richness of your inner world. And when you are composed within, it radiates outward. The world feels it, even if it can't explain why. Consider the story of Layla. Layla was a young architect in a firm full of talkers, people who rushed to fill every meeting with opinions, ideas, and self-promotion. She was different. She listened more than she spoke. She asked questions, paused before responding, and didn't chase applause. At first, some mistook her silence for passivity, but over time, things shifted. Senior partners began turning to her for clarity when discussions grew chaotic. Clients trusted her judgment, even when others had louder voices. Why? Because Layla never faked certainty. She embodied it. Her composure became her authority. She wasn't trying to be seen, she simply made herself impossible to overlook. That's what presence is, inner stillness expressed physically. It's posture without tension, speech without overcompensation, and silence without awkwardness. It's the art of holding space without needing to dominate it. So how do you cultivate this? Start with your posture. Stand like someone who respects themselves. Shoulders relaxed, head lifted, not as a performance, but as a reflection of dignity. Second, let your movements be purposeful. When you walk, walk with direction. When you speak, mean every word. People subconsciously pick up on intention, and intention is magnetic. And finally, learn to be comfortable with silence. You don't need to rush to fill the air. Silence, when rooted in calm, speaks volumes. When you move through the world with this kind of presence, people notice. Not because you're chasing their attention, but because you've withdrawn your need for it. And in a society addicted to noise, that kind of quiet confidence is both rare and powerful. You don't have to dominate to influence. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to be calm, clear, and completely unshaken. That's the kind of presence Stoicism teaches. That's the kind of presence that earns respect without ever asking for it. 3. Let your actions speak. There's a kind of authority that doesn't come from titles, speeches, or well-crafted promises. It comes from consistency, from quiet discipline, from doing what others only talk about. In a world that rewards noise, the most powerful people are often the ones who say the least and do the most. Everyone has ambition, everyone has dreams, but dreams without discipline are just noise. Talk is everywhere. What's rare, what's truly respected, is someone who moves without needing applause, who builds without needing to announce it. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Craving recognition, attention, or praise weakens you. When your value depends on being seen, you give others the power to decide your worth. But when you act with purpose, without asking for permission or validation, you reclaim that power. Let me tell you about Maya. When Maya started her career in a fast-paced tech firm, she was surrounded by people who loved to talk. They spoke often and loudly about their ideas, their goals, their potential. Maya, on the other hand, kept to herself. She didn't interrupt meetings to boast. She didn't brag on social media, but every day she delivered, quietly, consistently. While others were still pitching, Maya was building. At first, she was overlooked, but over time, something shifted. Colleagues began asking for her input. Leaders started trusting her judgment. Why? Because Maya didn't just promise, she produced. And without saying a word, she became one of the most respected voices in the room. That's the lesson. When you let your actions speak, you don't need to convince anyone. Your effort becomes your voice. Your results become your argument. And the best part, your enemies can't twist what they can see. They may gossip. They may question your motives. But they cannot dispute your discipline. So how do you cultivate this kind of silent strength? First, commit to consistency. Don't just show up when it's easy or when people are watching. Show up every day, especially when no one is. Second, pursue mastery. Take pride in your work. Refine your craft. Let excellence be your answer to doubt. And third, stay grounded. Let others talk. You don't need to join the noise. You just need to keep building. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That is the Stoic path. To live your truth so clearly, so fully, that you don't need to speak it. Because in the end, people remember what you did, not what you said. And your quiet determination will always echo louder than any performance. So hold your tongue, steady your pace, and let your actions write the story that your words never could. 4. Never overreact to insults. An insult is like a hook. It only catches you if you bite. And most people do. They hear a snide remark or a backhanded comment, and before they know it, they're tangled in the very conflict they swore they'd rise above. But here's the truth. Reacting to insults doesn't make you strong. It reveals where you're still weak. When someone mocks or belittles you and you rush to defend yourself, what you're really saying is, "You've hit something I'm not sure about." That's why they keep doing it. Because they've found your trigger and now they know how to use it. You didn't lose the moment they insulted you. You lost the moment you responded on their terms. Marcus Aurelius put it simply. Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. It's not the words that damage you. It's your decision to carry them. Let me share a story about someone named Darren. Darren worked at a creative agency known for its intense culture. One of the senior designers, Alex, had a reputation for being cruel. During team critiques, he'd often throw jabs masked as feedback. "You sure that's your best work?" Or, "Maybe this field isn't for everyone." At first, Darren pushed back. He defended his ideas, tried to outwit the insults. But each time he did, the room grew tenser, and Alex only dug deeper. One afternoon, after another comment meant to provoke him, Darren didn't respond. He simply nodded, made a note on his sketchpad, and moved on with the meeting. No defense, no anger, just stillness. The insult landed and slid off like rain on stone. Alex smirked, waiting for a reaction. He didn't get one. And just like that, the power began to shift. Over the next few weeks, Darren kept his composure. He stayed focused. His work improved. And Alex? He grew quieter, less smug, less confident. Because the game only works when you play it. Darren had stopped playing. That's the Stoic move. So how do you do the same? First, create space between the insult and your instinct. A pause is your greatest shield. Second, understand that your silence says more than any rebuttal ever could. It tells the room, "I don't need to defend what I already know to be true." And finally, detach. If the words aren't true, they don't deserve your attention. If they are true, use them to grow without resentment. Remember this, Insults only stick to the wounds you haven't healed. But when you're whole inside, nothing can pierce you. Let others waste their breath. Let them dig for a reaction. You don't need to fight back. You just need to rise above, because real strength isn't loud. Real strength is unmoved. 5. Control what they know about you. In a world that thrives on oversharing, restraint is a rare and powerful form of self-defense. People are always observing, listening not just to your words, but to your habits, your insecurities, your desires. And the more you reveal, the easier it becomes for others to predict, provoke, and manipulate you. Stoicism teaches that true power lies not only in what you do, but in what you withhold. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your soul is exposed to everyone, so are your fears, your triggers, and your ambitions. When others know exactly what moves you, they learn exactly how to move you. Let me tell you about Elena. She was an up-and-coming strategist at a corporate firm, brilliant, capable, and naturally trusting. In meetings and casual conversations, she was open. She'd speak candidly about her career goals, about the pressure she felt to perform, even about which colleagues she found difficult. At first, people responded warmly, but slowly the tone changed. Competitors began blocking her ideas before she could present them. Office politics turned against her. Private frustrations she thought were safe in conversation began to surface in gossip. She realized that every detail she had given away had quietly been turned into ammunition. That's when she decided to do something different. She started keeping her thoughts to herself. In meetings, she spoke with clarity, but without revealing her personal leanings. In casual chats, she listened more and shared less. Her ambitions remained, but now they were private. Colleagues who once thought they had her figured out began to hesitate. They could no longer read her, and that uncertainty gave her space to move without being predicted, space to lead without resistance. Her power didn't come from aggression, it came from mystery. This isn't about becoming secretive or deceitful, it's about discernment. You don't owe everyone access to your inner world. You don't need to explain your plans or expose your fears to be seen as trustworthy or strong. So how do you apply this? First, be intentional with your words. Speak with purpose, but don't speak everything. Second, protect your emotional privacy. Not every setback or dream needs to be shared. Let your actions reveal what you've already built, not what you hope to build. And finally, learn to let silence do the work. Sometimes the best strategy is to simply say less and observe more. Remember, what people don't know, they can't distort. And the person who controls their own narrative cannot be rewritten by others. Hold your cards a little closer. Keep your soul a little quieter, and you'll find that in the silence, you become stronger than ever. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below with "Guard the Quiet," and don't forget to like the video. Your journey to inner strength is just beginning. 6. Make power moves in silence. There's a certain kind of power that doesn't announce itself, it just arrives. No fanfare, no build-up, just results that can't be ignored. In today's hyper-connected world, where every move is posted, planned, and publicized, silence is a radical act. Most people can't resist the urge to talk about their goals, their vision, their big plans. But when you speak too soon, you give away more than information. You give away leverage. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Distractions, opinions, resistance, These are the obstacles we create when we make our intentions too public. But silence clears the path. When no one knows what you're building, nothing can block you. Let me tell you a story about someone named Reza. Reza was a gifted software engineer with a dream to launch his own product. Excited, he shared his idea with friends, mentors, and co-workers. He wanted feedback, support, maybe even a little recognition. And at first, it felt encouraging. People were impressed. Some offered advice. Others warned him about the risks. But slowly, the tide shifted. Doubts crept in, some his own, others planted by those who didn't understand his vision. Isn't that market already saturated? What if it doesn't scale? You're too early in your career to take that kind of risk. One colleague even started working on a similar concept after their conversation. Reza began second-guessing everything. Not because he lacked conviction, but because he'd invited too many voices into a space that required solitude. That's when he made a shift. He stopped talking. No more updates. No more brainstorms over coffee. He went inward, woke up early, worked late, refined his idea in silence. And then, 6 months later, he launched. The product was polished, functional, and already gaining traction. While others were still debating ideas, Reza had already built one. And because no one saw it coming, there was no friction, no resistance, just impact. This is the power of restraint. When you keep your plans private, you eliminate interference. You silence opinions that don't matter. You remove the temptation to perform before you're ready. Most importantly, you retain control of your energy, your time, and your direction. So, how do you practice this? First, treat your ambition like a flame in the wind. Protect it. Not out of fear, but because some things need to grow quietly before they're ready to be revealed. Second, understand that action speaks for itself. Execution is louder than any declaration. And third, be okay with being underestimated. The best power moves are the ones no one saw coming. You don't owe the world a preview. Let them wonder. Let them assume nothing's happening. And then let your results arrive like thunder after silence. True Stoic power isn't just the ability to act. It's the discipline to act without needing applause. Move in silence, build in peace, and when it's time to speak, let your success do all the talking. 7. Be unapologetically yourself. There is something quietly unstoppable about a person who no longer seeks permission to exist as they are. Someone who has made peace with who they are and refuses to shrink, soften, or explain to make others more comfortable. In today's world, most people are taught to blend in, to read the room, adjust the tone, and only reveal the parts of themselves that are safe, agreeable, and polished. But when you live like that, you don't belong anywhere. You simply survive everywhere. The Stoics saw through this illusion. Epictetus wrote, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." It's a hard truth. Growth and authenticity often come with misunderstanding. But that's the cost of becoming free from the opinions of others, because the more you rely on external validation, the more fragile your identity becomes. Let me tell you a story about Julian. Julian was a high school teacher, sharp and passionate, with a deep love for philosophy and literature. But he worked in an environment where sarcasm, conformity, and emotional detachment were the norm. His colleagues mocked anything that felt too sincere. So Julian adjusted. He stopped quoting his favorite philosophers. He laughed along with jokes that made him uncomfortable. He even started dressing more conservatively, just to avoid standing out. Years went by. Julian was well liked, but something felt hollow. He was playing a role, At night he would journal his real thoughts, his real voice, wondering when he would ever be allowed to live from that place, not just write from it. Then, one day, a student stayed after class. She said, "I read the quote you posted on your wall, Marcus Aurelius. I've never heard a teacher talk about things like that. It made me feel like my thoughts weren't weird. Thank you." That moment changed him. Julian realized that by hiding his truth, he wasn't protecting himself. He was robbing others of the strength they might find in it. He began speaking more openly, sharing what mattered to him, dressing how he felt most himself. And yes, some colleagues distanced themselves, but others leaned in. His students responded with deeper engagement. The classroom became alive again. He hadn't lost anything real. He'd simply lost the illusion of belonging that came from pleasing the wrong people. So, how do you live like that? First, understand this. You are not for everyone, and you were never meant to be. Stop diluting your personality to earn the approval of people who wouldn't love you at full strength anyway. Second, embrace what sets you apart. Your voice, your values, your eccentricities, those aren't flaws, they're fingerprints. And finally, make peace with discomfort. Some people will misunderstand you. Let them. Because once you no longer fear rejection, you become someone the world can't control. And in that freedom, you find something deeper than popularity. You find peace. Be who you are. Fully, loudly, quietly, authentically. The ones who matter will find you there. And the rest, let them drift. Your life is too sacred to be lived in costume. At the core of Stoic power is this: you don't need to shout to be heard or explain to be respected. When you master your emotions, guard your intentions, and walk your path without apology, you become someone no one can manipulate and everyone must reckon with. As Epictetus reminded us, if you want to be strong, learn how to live like one who is already free. Free from the need to prove. Free from the fear of judgment. Free to act quietly and decisively in full alignment with who you are. So protect your peace, move with intention, and let your silence echo louder than any performance. If today's message spoke to something in you, drop a comment below with "Unshaken Within." I'd love to hear what resonated most. And if you're walking this path of self-mastery, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned. There's more to come. Remember, the world respects the one who doesn't beg for it. Stay still, stay sharp, stay true.